Were white people created by a big-headed black alien scientist named Yakub 6,000 years ago? This legend was made popular by the early NOI, Nation of Islam, and is still taught within some of their sectors. The NOI has roots in African Muslims that were imported into the U.S. during the early slave trade. The community of African Muslims set up cultural centers during the 19th century and remained relatively low profile. The community revolutionized into the Black Muslim movement during the 20th century. The Black Muslim movement in America was influenced by the Moorish Science Temple of America, which was founded in 1913. It was founded by nationalist Noble Drew Ali. American civil rights activist and anthropologist Arthur Huff Fawcett, who was living during the days of the Moorish Science Temple's inception, understood that the many black nationalist groups that formulated afterward were indeed indebted to the work done by Noble Ali and his organization. Fawcett was a witness to their activities and wrote about them in his works like the Black Gods of the Metropolis. He's quoted as saying, "The Black Muslims are directly descended from the Moorish Science Temple, the tenuous thread woven by Noble Drew Ali in long time ago tiny missions in Detroit, Chicago, and Newark has penetrated the labyrinth political maze all the way to the Black Panthers. Noble Ali was the first to instill a unified Black Muslim identity into African Americans with the specific goal to render themselves back to their ancestral roots. The American Moors and Noble Ali would ignite the flame within a couple of young men who would create a massive, still ongoing Black Muslim movement. These two would be W.D. Fard, Elijah Muhammad, and the Nation of Islam. W.D. Fard is regarded as the true founder, with Elijah Muhammad being his assistant and later successor. As I'll later present, it was Fard who influenced Elijah Muhammad in the construction of the infamous Yakub legend. Malcolm X and the still-functioning Minister Farrakhan were two other notable leaders in the party. A controversial group with many amazing key points in history. Its current membership is a total of 10 to 50,000 people. The cultural movement began with Noble Drew Ali's teachings towards a nationalist back to Africa and back to a Muslim life mission. Since then, the movement has incorporated some contentious tenets, with discontent with the Jewish leadership, repulsion toward the homosexual community, and strong adherence to racial separation. The Nation of Islam has strong views against anything outside of their immediate institution. The legend about the big-headed alien scientist who genetically engineered white people could be seen as a starting point for these beliefs. Frequently, NOI leaders refer to the white race as white devils. This is because they were not created by God, but man-made by the mad scientist Yakub. In a 2020 speech, Minister Farrakhan reiterated, "When the white man was made, his father was a liar. His father was a murderer, so they are born with lie and murder in their nature." Elijah Muhammad, the successor of the NOI's founder, wrote extensively on this tale throughout his books. In Message to the Black Man in America, he tells us that 6,000 years ago, our nation gave birth to another God, whose name was Yakub. He started studying the life germ of man to try making a new creation, a new man. Elijah Muhammad professes that it was Allah who revealed the history of Yakub to him. Muhammad tells us that when Yakub was a child, he realized a secret about magnetism after playing with some metal. He saw that there was power in opposites. In his maniacal mind, he knew that his purpose was to create a being opposite of the black man of truth, to attract them and bring them astray. Yakub had an unusually large head, scientific prowess, and ambition towards his goal. He learned from studying the germ of the black man under the microscope that there were two people in him, and that one was black, the other brown. His mission was to separate the genes of darker and lighter skin to further manipulate and breed the brown gene until it was white, thus creating his opposite man. This new white man would be used to deceive the black man. Yakub's science is called by leaders like Elijah Muhammad as tricknology. Muhammad tells us that Yakub's street preaching landed him in the eyes of the law, and eventually he and his 59,000 followers were arrested and shipped off to the island of Patmos in the Aegean Sea. It was there that Yakub's ruthless plan unfolded. It was his goal to use his white creation to subjugate his black brethren and rule the world. He began an aggressive breeding experiment project, ordering his doctors and nurses to kill any babies with the pure black gene until they were phased out and all that was left was the light-skinned gene that could produce the white entity. The black babies would be thrown into the wild for the animals to consume. Yakub threatened his followers, stating that if any of them were to disobey his rules, he would cut their heads off. It took Yakub a total of 600 years to perfect his plan. After the long and arduous breeding project, Yakub achieved his goal of creating the opposite man, the white devil. Because of the lying and killing that was done to create them, these vices were inherent in the now pale, blue-eyed people. Yakub's orders to the white people were simple. He taught them to mingle and ease their way into the community, then to sow discord behind the scenes to get the people to fight among each other. Once the people were fighting with each other, Yakub declared it should be the white man's job to interject as the peacemaker, gaining psychological control over them both. Elijah Muhammad adds in his book, "This is the reason why the American so-called Negroes can never agree on unity among themselves, which would put them on top overnight. The devils keep them divided by paid informers from among themselves." Elijah Muhammad tells us that Yakub was successful and had the kingdom of his black brethren divided and conquered, but only for a short time. The king and people caught on and rallied in a revolt. They captured all the white people and drove them out of the Holy Land of Mecca and shipped them off to what is now Europe, where they left them stripped, naked, and without resource. Legend has it that Yakub and his madness eventually passed away, but the white people were to return someday in prophecy and rule the earth for 6,000 years until the end of days. The NOI's recurrent journal, started by Farrakhan, The Final Call, has presented, in its view, scientific evidence of the Yakub story throughout the years. In a 2010 article titled "Myth or High Science? Is There Evidence of Mr. Yakub?" they state there is proof in the words of certain scientists and anthropologists. They quote Darwin as saying, "We have thus far been baffled in all our attempts to account for the differences between the races of man, but there remains one important agency, namely sexual selection, which appears to have acted as powerfully on man as on many other animals." Accentuating this point, the article brings in the words of the English physician James Cowles Prickard, as concluding that the difference in races among humans could have only come about due to the process of artificial selection carried on by plant and animal breeders. Elijah Muhammad did not construct this tale himself, but was given it by his master, the founder of the NOI, W.D. Fard. In Muhammad's book, The Theology of Time, he praises Fard as follows: "There was no man that had come up who had the wisdom of Yakub to take away his rule until the birth of the Mahdi, whom I represent to you in the name of Master Fard Muhammad. That is your and my God, Master Fard Muhammad, in person." Fard was seen as Allah incarnate, as the Mahdi or Messiah returned. Fard, born in 1877, emigrated to America from Mecca sometime before 1930. In 1930, he set up the Detroit Temple of Islam, the University of Islam, and the Fruit of Islam, a sort of military training. He taught his people to have national pride and to be vigilant against the Christian nation, which they would have to war with one day. He was a man of mystery. Elijah Muhammad wrote of his initial interaction with Fard in his book, Message to the Black Man in America, saying, "He began teaching us the knowledge of ourselves, of God and the devil, of the measurement of the earth and of other planets, and of the civilization of some of the planets other than Earth. I asked him, 'Who are you, and what is your real name?' He said, 'I am the one that the world has been expecting for 2,000 years. I said to him, again, 'What is your name?' He said, 'My name is Mahdi. I am God. I came to guide you into the right path, that you may be successful and see the hereafter.' He described the destruction of the world with bombs, poison gas, and finally with fire that would consume and destroy everything in the present world. W.D. Fard and the NOI were being investigated by the FBI for their mysterious and influential growth. For many years, their reports were held classified. In Carl Evans's book titled The Messenger, we are presented with at least 2 occasions in which scholars attempted to acquire the FBI documents through the Freedom of Information Act, but were discouraged. Back in 1974, a German student and writer working on a doctorate thesis on the Nation of Islam, Yakub Clarence, petitioned for the release of the FBI documents. She was inhibited by their request that she pay $12,000 for them to be released. At the time of Evans's book, in the late 90s, the precious documents were then only worth $500. I'm assuming that now they're all probably free. But why was the FBI so hesitant to release the documents then? Carl Evans himself petitioned for the documents for his book, The Messenger, and received a displeasing 400 pages. Of those 400 pages, very little was said about W.D. Fard. In one document titled Nation of Islam, Cult of the Black Muslim, published in 1965, we find the FBI stating, "Fard was a door-to-door peddler in the Negro neighborhoods. To stimulate his sales, he told his customers that his products came from their home country from which he had also come. His rather mystic personality apparently entranced his customers, and before long he was instructing small gatherings with tales of their true origin. In this way, the tenets of the cult were developed. Little factual data was ever learned concerning Fard, and after May 1933, when ordered by local authorities to leave Detroit, he dropped out of sight and no trace of him has ever been found." W.D. Fard, the mysterious founder of the NOI, bringer of the Yakub legend, and the supposed reincarnation of Allah, has been missing since the 1930s. Other sources say that the FBI were after him and exiled him because he was a cult leader who encouraged a follower to commit a human sacrifice. Where is Master Fard? Is the Yakub legend true? Why was the FBI so hesitant in releasing his documents for 2 decades? Could it be that Master Fard was whom he said he was, and has now vanished from Earth to someday return with the ancient black scientists to restore Earth from the evils of Yakub? We may never know.